Our diet choices impact greatly on animal welfare. A diet composed of whole plant foods with limited amounts of animal-derived foods is obviously going to be better for animal welfare. The fortunate thing is that diets composed of whole plant foods, that is, fruits, vegetables, whole grains and legumes, nuts and seeds, is also the most healthy diet for human health, and not only human health but planetary health. The problem we are facing globally is that our unhealthy diets are now the top cause of death and disability. And a study published just in April 2019 demonstrated that 1 in 5 deaths globally is caused by an unhealthy diet. And when they looked at the factors contributing to these deaths, the top factors were a diet high in sodium, which is a reflection of eating processed foods, but also diets low in whole grains, low in vegetables, low in fruits, and low in nuts and seeds. So it's really what we're not eating, as well as the fact that we're eating diets high in processed foods and high in animal-derived foods. The WHO has told us for a long time that an unhealthy diet is one that's composed of processed foods high in salt, fat and sugar, but also a diet that's high in animal-derived food because these are high in saturated fat. And an unhealthy diet is also one that is low in vegetables, fruits, whole grains and beans. The blue zones are regions in the world where people live the longest and healthiest. There are also more centenarians in these regions of the world than anywhere else. When you look at their diet pattern, what is common to these regions is that their diets are composed of whole plant foods, minimally processed foods, and are pretty much devoid of animal-derived foods. Meat is eaten probably around 5 times a month. Large prospective cohort studies have also shown us that diets centered around whole plant foods result in longer life, and when you combine this healthy diet with exercise, limiting toxins such as tobacco smoking and alcohol, and adequate sleep and stress management, then people live 12 to 14 years longer than those that are not following healthy lifestyles. So why are plant-based diets so good at preventing disease? They get to the root cause of our chronic diseases. The top causes of death and disability are cardiovascular disease, cancer and diabetes. And what they have in common is underlying inflammation and oxidative stress. And studies have shown that plant-based diets can prevent oxidative stress and inflammation. In addition, plant-based diets are very low in cholesterol and saturated fat, and therefore prevent one of the top risk factors for cardiovascular disease, which is high cholesterol. Plant-based diets also maintain our gut health by promoting healthy gut bacteria which require fibre to thrive, and fibre is only found in plant foods and is not present in animal-derived foods. In addition, plant-based diets result in lower levels of growth hormones in the blood, such as estrogen, insulin-like growth factor, and insulin, and these lower levels of growth factor prevent abnormal cell growth and therefore help to prevent cancer. Plant-based diets reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease by approximately 30%. They reduce the risk of cancer by about 15%. And for certain cancers, such as prostate cancer, breast cancer and ovarian cancer, this risk is reduced by 30%. The reason plant-based diets are so good at preventing disease is because they're full of micronutrients, antioxidants and other phytonutrients that are absent in animal-derived food. We mustn't forget that red and processed meat has been classified as carcinogens by the WHO. The WHO classified processed meat as a group 1 carcinogen, that is, it directly causes cancer, and this is mainly related to colorectal cancer, but of course increases the risk of other cancers such as breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, and head and neck cancers. Red meat has been classed a probable carcinogen, that is a group 2 carcinogen. The main reason why processed meat causes cancer is because the nitrites and nitrates used to preserve the meat and prevent botulism is converted to N-nitroso compounds in the gut, which damage cells, damage DNA, and lead to abnormal cell growth and eventually colorectal cancer. Red meat and processed meat is also high in heme iron, which creates oxidative stress and again damages cells in the gut. It also converts in the gut to N-nitroso compounds, which again lead to abnormal unregulated cell growth and colorectal cancer. When you heat any meat to high temperatures, you generate carcinogens. These carcinogens are called heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. And it's not just red and processed meats that create these carcinogens, it's also poultry. So it's clear that a diet centered around whole plant foods is optimal for preventing disease. But what we also know is that plant-based diets can be used to treat chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. Dr. Dean Ornish, a pioneer of lifestyle medicine, published a paper in 1990 that demonstrated that if people adhered to a low-fat, plant-based diet, they were able to arrest and reverse cardiovascular disease. No medication or no other diet has been shown to be able to do this. And when Bill Clinton needed a bypass operation, it was Dr. Dean Ornish that he consulted and adopted a plant-based diet, which has been well covered in the media. Dr. Dean Ornish also showed that a whole food plant-based diet, low in fat, could arrest the progression of early stages of prostate cancer and reduce the need for surgery and radiotherapy in men with early stages of prostate cancer. Subsequent studies have also shown that if after a diagnosis of breast cancer and colorectal cancer, you eat a diet centered around whole plant foods, your chances of remission are better and people live longer also. So these information have been taken on board and now form the basis of international consensus. When you look at the diet guidelines from the World Cancer Research Fund, they recommend a diet centered around whole plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains and beans for cancer prevention, and they say after a diagnosis of cancer, stick to such a diet. They also recommend limiting processed and red meat. I would say avoid these meats. In January 2019, the Eat Lancet Commission published a large analysis in the Lancet journal. They brought together 37 scientists from 16 countries. They were commissioned to come up with a healthy diet that was not only optimal for human health, but was also optimal for planetary health. And they came up with a diet termed the Planetary Health Diet. And when you look at this diet, it is composed of predominantly whole plant foods. 85% of the diet is plant-based. It acknowledges that you don't need to eat animal-derived foods, be it meat, eggs or dairy, for health. But if you are going to eat these foods, it should compose less than 15% of the diet. And they estimate that if the whole world adopted such a planetary health diet, we could save 11 million lives per year. It's great to see now that country-based food guidelines are taking on board this data and not only considering human health but planetary health. One of the latest food guidelines is from Health Canada, published in 2019. It recommends Canadians to eat a diet centered around whole plant foods. It doesn't talk about meat or dairy being essential, but talks about deriving protein mainly from plants, and if you are going to eat animal foods, limiting this and limiting red and processed meats. But when you look at their healthy diet plate, 3/4 of the plate is composed of fruits, vegetables and whole grains. Dairy is no longer essential and water is recommended for thirst. So to summarise, there's a large body of evidence supporting plant-based diets for not only optimal human health but for planetary health. National and international guidelines have now caught up with this evidence and are also recommending residents and world populations to eat a diet centered around whole plant foods. And as I've already stated, this is not only optimal for human health, but it is going to contribute to improving animal welfare also.